Hello, everyone. I guess we're going to start. It's time. So, welcome and thanks for joining us to this webinar about code delivery in a DevSecOps way through automation and security. Today I'm with Greg, and we're going to talk about all of that. And I guess we're going to start with introducing ourselves. So I'm with Mergify, and Greg is with GitProtect. So to briefly introduce myself, I'm Julian, the CEO and co-founder of Mergify. I've been doing open source stuff for more than 20 years now, so I'm a developer. I mean, I started this way at least, an engineer. And what we do at Mergify briefly is that we automate stuff around development in GitHub for certain engineers that want to make their code merge faster, safer, and cheaper. So that's it. Greg, do you want to talk about yourself a bit?
Yeah, for sure. So just maybe a few words about the company. Firstly, GitProtect is the part of Zopro One. And in Zopro is in general backup software producer. So we are leading backup provider in Europe. We are providing our backup services for more than 14 years. And what's funny and interesting, we've started our history with a cloud backup. So we were on the market with cloud storage services, let's say, before Google Drive or Dropbox. And later on, we find out the niche on the market that very important resources are not covered, like your source codes, like repositories. So we've decided to equip our great backup platform with those backup features like GitHub, GitLab, and so on, what you will learn later about on. And myself, my name is in Polish, it's Grzegorz, but I believe you won't be able to repeat my name, so that's why I used to introduce myself as Greg. I've started my career with data security and backup almost 12 years ago, so it's quite a lot of time. I've started as a support manager, and I went a long path to become chief of R&D, because in the meantime I was also web mobile developer, so I was developing mobile apps. I was responsible also for designing our product, so I know quite a lot on how to create the product, and also I can wait for information from you what we can do to make our code faster available for our customers.
It's a vast topic, right? I think before we started and we dive into this, it's worth mentioning the global context which we are in right now. I mean, it's 2023, and so there are a lot of things happening on the market right now which are, I think, defining and changing the engineering team. I think everyone saw the news the last month where everybody got fired, right? I mean, there's a lot of engineers being removed from teams, basically. I mean, large tech companies are trying to, I don't know, to get slim and maybe to be more efficient.
You know, about this point with less engineers, I don't know how it looks from your perspective, but for example, recently there were a lot of layoffs you mentioned about. So in general, there should be more engineers on the market available for companies who wants to hire them. But from my perspective, they just disappeared from the market. I don't know what happened with those people, but you know, we have opened some you know, positions for engineers, and we cannot find them.
That's funny. That's a topic for another webinar, I guess. Where are the engineers now? Are they retired? Are they doing something else? It's weird. But yeah, that's true. I mean, basically the companies and the engineering team have to do more and with less people at least. There's more and more work to be done. I mean, if you work, depending on the market where you are, but I mean, there's more and more updates, milestones. There's more things to do, particularly. Because you have more work to do, also because there are more and more competition. For example, we both are in the SaaS industry. We are building software for other companies, and you have competitors, we have competitors, everyone has competitors on the market, and we need to go faster and faster and faster than our competitors, which means we have to be very efficient in what we do. Cyber attacks, I guess you know about that, right?
Yeah, you know, about cyber attacks, we know a lot here in GitProtect, and not because we are affected of them, but we are helping our customers to deal with results of cyber attacks. And I believe most of you are aware, for example, about ransomware, which is, I think, the most commonly known cyber attack. And you may think it doesn't fit, it doesn't affect Git repositories, but such thing happened in the past, and I'm quite sure it will happen also in the future, because it's pretty fastly growing market. I usually trying to compare it to the war. So on the one side, we've got hackers who wants to steal your data, who wants to not only to steal data, but in general, they want to get some money from you. So that's why they demand high ransoms, for example, to pay to give your data back. Or from the other perspective, more often we can meet the case when attackers says, okay, if you don't pay the ransom because you have backup and you can easily recover, then we are going to publish your data. So that's why it's very crucial to be safe and secure against such kind of cyber attacks. But of course, cyber attacks are not the only reason why you should save yourself, because there are a lot of things that may happen. You can make a mistake, which is another point here in our overview, in our scope. If you're talking about developer mistakes, I usually used to say all we are humans and all we are makes mistakes. So even if you didn't yet any mistake with your code, and you may think it's safe, it's secure, it's not, and you will make this mistake, I'm quite sure. And about service outages, I don't have to take, to take a look so far, because even today, one of Git service, which is maybe not GitHub, we are going to focus mostly on today, but Bitbucket had also some issues, and in general, it was, not so operatable today, especially early morning here in Poland.
Yeah, that's true for GitHub too.
Yeah, so as we can see, such thing happens, and they are quite often if we are talking about some service outages, service bugs. So also you have to be prepared to work to continue your business when they are not available. I don't know how it affects you.
No, it does. I mean, I was thinking about service outages, and we use GitHub a lot, and that's true that we're seeing more and more often outages, sometimes short, sometimes only partial, but we have a few running jokes internally about that, which I mean makes sense, and I don't blame them because they're getting bigger and bigger, so it's very hard to operate at that scale, and I mean, fair enough, you have outages, but on the other side, when you are a user, a customer, I mean, it's you need to be prepared to that and how to handle the situation at the end.
Yeah, everything is just about the scale, because once you have higher business, once your business is growing, then those service outages and other reasons, other issues affects you more.
Yeah, exactly. So it's time to talk about how you unleash your developer velocity with automation and security. There are two things that you see happening most of the time, and the DevSecOps approach is what most people tend to adapt. So if you never heard of it, the quick summary is like, I guess everyone knows DevOps at this point, which is like fixing developer operation, all of that. And the second is adding security on top of that, which gives you more basically moving security and all this kind of approach, making that everything is secure and works fine. Moving that left to the developer part and not at the end of the pipeline where nobody cares about things not being secure and not being broken. That's something very important in that sense. And doing so, it's great, but it's also very time consuming. And as we were saying just before, you have less resources and you have to do more with less as usual. So having all of this approach being automated makes a lot of sense if you want to be able to use that approach and benefits from it, but not spend more time on more money or more resources on it. The perks of this are pretty obvious, I guess, but for your engineers and using that trend being brought up a lot these last years is what we call DEX, for developer experience. is there are two approaches to developer experience, which is the external developer experience for people using your product. For example, if you're a SaaS company and you have an API, all of that, but there's also the internal decks where you have your developers internally using your system, being your software that you use internally, like GitHub, for example, your CI, whatever, and how hard it is for them to contribute and to work, to build their daily work as writing software, writing new features, fixing bugs, all of that. How hard it is, and the more automated it is, the more time they will be able to spend on doing actual work, which is, for example, writing code or writing things that matters, like creating stuff that matters, and not trying to manage tiny things that could be automated, which means they're going to have less mental load and not having to think about some of the things that could be automated, a lot of processes that you have to run manually every day or whatever. Not automating that is also, and we are talking about that just before, human mistakes, right? We all do mistakes. If a process is not automated, bad things will happen for sure. The question is not if they will happen, it's when they will happen. That sometimes somebody's going to press the wrong button or something. And having things automated is also one of the great things that you can have with that is to be able to ease your onboarding, right? If you have to transmit a lot of information, being text or people talking to each other when you have a newcomer in your team, it's very hard, it's very slow to have to all this information to give, where when it's automated, you don't have to actually, because it's automated, and you don't have to explain how it works to somebody because it just works. It's there's a process, there's something doing it for you, a script, a bot, whatever. And it's also auditable in the sense that anyone can see what it does and anyone can see what it did, how it works, all of that. It's like documentation that is actually doing something, right? The DevSecOps approach is really on security, and there are multiple aspects on security. I think it's quite important to go through. It's not to complete list of everything, but that's the main thing that we'll find in the DevSecOps approach, basically, is to have tests and automation. I think nowadays it's more and more, less and less likely actually that you will encounter a team that does not use any tests, any CI, any automation anywhere. It would be pretty bad to do that. Actually to try to write software and not run any tests, right? People used to do that 15 years ago. I don't think anyone is trying to do that right now. So you have this kind of process where you run your tests all the time. And we tend to know have this approach where we run the test before merging the code, not after. That moves over the last 10 years, I think, in this kind of practice, which is always moving left, closer to the developer and having this feedback loop, which is pretty important for developers to write proper code. Code reviews, something pretty new. Nobody was doing that. Maybe, it wasn't mainstream at least 10 or 15 years ago, and now every team is trying to do that. Which, code review has these great perks of, yes, you review the code of others, so you actually say it works, it doesn't work, it's good, it's bad, whatever. But it also this kind of side effect where you transmit the information that somebody changed in the system to other people, depending on the number of review that you're asking for. But it's a great vector to actually spread the knowledge inside your team. That is often, I think, in some teams at least, skip through, which is pretty sad. Clean code linters, trying to have this all automated. You don't want to have during the code reviews people trying to actually debate over the semicolon or bracket or whatever, or the code should be written. So having this automated, which makes sure that you also can catch common errors. A lot of linters are actually catching errors that are pretty obvious. And again, it's automating the code review in that sense, where you just catch more and more errors and you don't have to repeat yourself on every pull request that is being sent to your project. SAST, DAST, if you don't know about those, mostly static and dynamic security analysis of your code. The point is a bit like a linter to try to find common vulnerability in the code that you write. If you write code that is an anti-pattern in terms of security, like, I don't know, using unencrypted data for storing a password or whatever, you have a lot of tools nowadays on the market trying to address this kind of area and making sure that you're going to Not merge code that has this kind of common problem that will bite you later. Typing really depends on the tech that you're using and the language you're using, but a lot of languages nowadays are the typing version or some typing ins that you can use, like JavaScript, for example, or MyPy in Python, all of that, which it's debate. So I'm not going to enter into that debate, but is it good or bad? It does catch a lot of mistakes if you're using those. It also sometimes kills a bit of the spirit of a language if you're using a dynamic language, but it also has these kind of advantages to use. Dependency management is a huge problem if you're using software from open source, and I think everybody does nowadays. You have to manage all of that in terms of license for sure, but in terms of security, you don't want to pull dependencies that have big security holes into those, and then you have to manage the lifecycle of updating those dependencies, making sure they work together, they work with your system, they don't introduce new vulnerabilities, they fix the old ones. And there's again a whole ecosystem around that to make sure that it all works and make sure that your system and software is secure. Secret storage in general, I would say, and vulnerability scanning, same thing, making sure that you don't have any security issue into your code or the dependencies. And infrastructure as code, which clearly comes from the more DevOps, I would say, side of things, where you don't just build an infrastructure, but you actually try to make that repeatable, auditable, and as I was saying before, automated, so it's self-documented and you can reproduce it, you can understand it, audit it, and make sure that it's actually secure. One of the things that is, I think, not very well seen in that area is what we call a continuous merchant delivery. So basically, there's a lot of work still in the team that could be done in that area. So I would say the best team nowadays, all the best practices I just listed, they implement all of that. Not maybe 100%, but they're going into that direction and trying to do all of that, automate the most that they can, but there's still a lot of work that could be done. For example, automating reviews. There are a lot of complaints from software engineers about having to wait days, weeks for code reviews to happen. Sometimes it's for a good reason, right? The code is pretty big, it's not very well written, very well split, but in a lot of cases, it's also just a document change, a doc string change, something very small, a typo somewhere, and if you have to wait more than 1 day to merge that, it's pretty sad, right? So there are a lot of work to be done in that area where you can actually automate code reviews, or maybe lower the threshold where you want, if you ask for 2 reviews and 2 approval before merging a PR, you could maybe write a rule that says, actually, I could maybe only ask for 1 approval if this is just a document change or a typo or something. So there's a lot of work in that area to streamline any change with low risk, being sure that it's not going to impact a large part of your code, for example, of your infrastructure, and make sure that you can actually fix that pretty easily. Another thing that is often not very well covered is assigning the PRs, the changes to the right team. There is a lot of team where this just goes into black hole of the whole team, for example, where you are 50% and you have this effect where you just ask 50%, 15% to do something. Everybody is going to stare at each other saying somebody else is going to do it right. So you don't have this kind of fluidity you could have from code reviews, and there's a lot of things to address in that area. Another thing is making sure that what you merge is actually correct. So people tend to set up a CI and think that this makes sure that everything works. And I'll show you just after at the end with the demo that not necessarily true. There are cases where you can actually merge code, even with the CI that says it passes where things are broken. And this is what the merge queue solves actually. So the merge queue is that tool where you're going to be able to make sure everything that you merge is going to work. Typical use case is you have multiple PRs being open on your repo, which is not that unusual. They all pass, but they're not compatible with each other. Not in the sense that there's a conflict between files, right? But just in the sense that some a PR is going to rename something, and that something is being used by another PR. So they both work at the same time, but when you merge them together at the same time, they're just going to crash and not work. So merge to solve that by putting everything that is mergeable into a queue and merging all the PR into the right order. First PR goes first, is merged, tested and merged. Second PR is retested with what just been merged before, and then may fail and be removed from the queue, and then the developer has to fix it, or works fine and being merged. So that's really what the merge queue can do for you as a first first problem solving, basically. It can do many things like prioritize the merge into and make them into the right order. If you have a queue with a lot of PR to merge, there's a lot of things that you want to do after that, which is making sure you put the PR with the right priority into the right order, making sure that the first PR is going to be, the hotfix PR, for example, that is fixing something broken into production is going to be merged first, whereas one that is maybe updating dependency is going to be put at the end of the queue because you don't really care about this being merged first. Standardizing and making sure that all of that is automating also remove human mistakes. How many people I've seen where they actually want to do a splash merge and somebody just hit the rebase merge button on GitHub, and then the Git tree is all broken and not very, and then you can't really do anything about it except rewrite history and then do a push forward on med, which nobody wants to do that, right? So if you don't automate that and you leave all that to human pressing the merge button and not having doing that automatically, it's not efficient. There's a lot of place for human mistakes, basically. So it's pretty bad approach to handle your merge.
Yeah, so it's my time to share with you some use cases why you should protect your DevOps ecosystem, and also I would like to briefly give you some best practices. But I believe that both we can agree that automation is the best approach for almost everything, including merging, including code management, as well as data backups. So you may wonder why you have to back up your GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, or other DevOps ecosystem you are using, especially when they are mostly in the cloud. So mostly you're using those services nowadays in software as a service model. And recently, not later than 2 weeks ago, I took part in DevOps Pro Europe conference, and I asked the audience if you heard about shared responsibility model or limited liability, and there was only few hands raised up. They hear about it, and this is very important to know that service provider like GitHub, GitLab, Atlassian for Bitbucket or Jira, they are just responsible for providing you the service for its efficiency, its availability, service hosting, but they are not responsible for the security of your data. And your data, its security is only on your own. So you are the person responsible for your data. And even if you think that they are making some backups, you're right. They made some backups, but you don't know when, how often. You don't have any access to those backups. You don't know where they are stored. And also, you don't exactly know how to recover them. So that is the first, and I think one of the most important reasons why you have to back up your data, even if they are stored in cloud. And of course, we can help you, or in general, backup and disaster recovery solution like GitProtect can help you against some human errors, for example. And here I have some nice story from one of our customers. He was traveling with his daughter to holidays, and he just left his mobile phone because there was quite a long road ahead, and she just needs something to play with, so he gave her the phone. And when they arrived in place, he realized that his daughter somehow deleted 400 repositories from GitLab, and I'm not sure if the story is real because it sounds crazy. But if it's not real, then the truth is even worse that the customer said. So such thing happened. You never know when you or someone from your team can make such a huge mistake, which in occur will lost your data. Of course, probably some of you right now said, hey, okay, it's pretty easy. I can just write simple script, because if you're talking about, for example, Git repositories, it's nothing more than Git clone or maybe forking the repository. And again, you're wrong, because statistics says that if you are using scripts to maintain your backups, in the result, your backups are usually half-year old. So now let's think what you can do with your data when right now they are half-year old. They are useless for you mostly, so that's why you shouldn't script it on your own. But it's not only, if you're talking about Git backup, it's not only about the source code, because as you see, it's pretty easy to protect the source code, but there are a lot of different metadata which are related to your source code, like pull requests, like issues, like comments, and so on. All of them you can see on platforms which I mentioned before at least few times. Of course, if we are talking also about some business continuity, we cannot forget about some service outages we've mentioned at the very beginning of our today's meeting. And here I've got again one more story for you, because unfortunately, it's our potential customer. He didn't become a GitProtect user, and I don't know honestly why. I hope none of you were affected by Jira migration that Atlassian made last year. It was April last year. They've decided to migrate the Jira cloud between two different systems or something like this. And there were two different teams responsible for this operation. And they didn't agree exactly which services should be removed. And unfortunately, the second team removed too many services, even those that shouldn't be deleted. And in the result, Atlassian customers lost access to their Jira instances. And the potential customers I'm talking about lost access to his Jira for over 3 weeks. So for 3 weeks, he cannot access his issues, his tasks, his backlog, and so on. So for a lot of company, they cannot continue their businesses without Jira. And why they have to wait so long? Atlassian had backup of his Jira, but he wasn't the biggest one. So they've started with the biggest customers, and after that, they've started restoring the data for the smaller ones, and finally, our potential customer gets also restored. This is the customer from Asia, and he says that it's still on service provider responsibility to provide data backup and recovery. And even if he has to wait 3 weeks for his data, still he's not convinced to implement any third-party backup. So now I think just those few use cases give you the overview that there is a need to protect your Git repositories and in general your entire DevOps ecosystem, to back it up properly and to have valid disaster recovery solution in place. And now let's talk about some nice best practices. So as I said at the very beginning, I'm quite sure all here we can agree that automation is the best approach for almost everything, including data backup. So you have to be sure that your backup is made automatically, but also that all important and valuable resources are covered automatically by your backup solution. Not like within the script that you have to add some new repositories to your script, but they should be covered automatically, because it's better to have too much data in your backup that just lost one important repository or maybe one important Jira project or anything else important what you may need. I don't know if you heard about 3-to-1 backup rule. To me, it's obvious, but I realized that a lot of people, even those related with data security, are not familiar with 3-to-1 backup rule. So in general, it says that you just have to 3 copies of your data in 2 different locations and at least 1 outside of the company, or maybe we should say today outside its origin location. So if you're talking about data which are stored in the cloud, you shouldn't store them in the same cloud as well, in the same region, because as we all know, data centers also sometimes are moving directly to the cloud, like OVH year or two ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I know that such thing happened. It's also very important to choose backup solution which encrypts your data. It's everything about your intellectual property, the most valuable data you have. And I'm quite sure you don't want anyone else to have access to your data. So that's why I always recommend to make some encryption in place. And now the script, which you may still have in mind, it's making more complicated. You should find also some ways or maybe solution which protects you against ransomware. So it's not only about, securing your source data, but also it's about keep safe your backup destination. So you have to be sure that backup destination has features like, for example, immutable storage, which prevents any software, any user, and anything from changing your data unless latency period will pass. So you can be sure that even there, if ransomware somehow will access to your backup storage, still it won't be able to do anything with your backups. It's also very important to have effortless management. All we are humans, we are making mistakes, but we are also lazy as humans. So if you will have to put too much effort on backup ecosystem managing or checking some logs or validating some information or on its configuration, it's not for you, especially when it comes to disaster recovery. When something wrong happened to your data, when there is such a disaster that you lost access to your service or to your most valuable data, then the solution must be as easy as possible to give you the possibility in just few clicks to start recovering of all your the most valuable and the most important data. It's also in terms of disaster recovery very important to have possibility for cross recovery. So for example, if on daily basis you're using GitHub and GitHub will goes down, then make sure that your backup can be recovered somewhere else, because otherwise it will be useless. GitHub goes down and you can recover your data only to GitHub, then you don't have data to recover. So that's why cross recovery feature, it's also very, very important in terms of data backup. Also, you should be able to choose any point in time you would like to restore your data from, not only the latest one, because sometimes your data may get corrupted, encrypted, and so on and so on. And after that, they can be also baked up before you will discover that something wrong happened to your data. And yeah, so that's why you should consider disaster recovery features before you will choose your production backup environment. So that's all in theory. I believe it's time to jump into the demo, because also I can't wait to see how Mergify works and how you can help developers work.
Let's do this then. So let me show you how that works. So what I'm going to show you is why you should use a merge queue, basically, and why you are going to merge code that is broken. So let me exit this.
Yeah, so in the meantime, I would like to let you know that there is a questions panel in GoToWebinar application. So if you have any questions related to our presentation, feel free to ask them over the questions panel or over the chat, because at the end we are going to make short Q&A session for you.
Yes. Let me do this. I have the new website just here. It's not very exciting. It's just for demo purpose. So, and I'm going to simulate basically what happens in real life, which is I'm a developer and I want to add a fancy chart to this dashboard, right? Because it doesn't add a chart, it lacks color. So I want to add fanciness to it. But there's something that is going to happen at the same time, and I will show you what it is. So I'm going to create automatically a pull request on my repository, which is just there. So you have a script doing that for me in the background because I'm very lazy. And I mean, Greg just thought that we are lazy, right? So I'm lazy too. So I have two PRs right now. The first one is add a chart into the dashboard, which is my PR, right? So I want to add a very nice chart into the dashboard. So if we look at the file, I change the dashboard file. I'm adding a chart component to it. Pretty easy. I mean, it's fine. Should be easy to merge. The tests are running on that PR right now. The test running, a build running to see if that works. It's going to pass, I guess, because it's good code for me. There's another PR too, which has been opened, and that's just going to rename the chart component to graph. So, I mean, pretty simple PR, nothing bad really. My two PRs are working right now. They are both green here. They both pass the test. So I'm going to do what any developer would do on GitHub. I'm just going to merge those two PRs. First one being merged. Cool. Let's merge this one too because it works. Perfect. It works. So all good. That was easy, right? So I'm going to update my website. It's broken, right? Well, it's broken because I just merged two PR which are not compatible, right? There's no conflict. It both works according to GitHub. The thing is, one of the PR was adding a component named chart, and the other one just renamed it under its feeds, which means it doesn't work. So if I'm trying to run the CI right now on the main branch, it's going to say, well, it's broken because there's something that you are importing that doesn't work, doesn't exist anymore. And that's what I see here on running the website on my computer. So I merged something which appeared to works, which both has the CI, but actually did not work. The real problem, like I was saying before, is that the first PR was fine, but the second PR that I merged, I mean, whatever the order is, was broken by design because something changed just before. And the only way to catch that was to merge the first PR, and before merging the second PR, test it again with an up-to-date main branch merged into it. So that's exactly what a merge queue does. When you have a lot of PR that are mergeable, you put them into a queue and you merge them one by one, making sure that they are up to date with each other. So we're going to see, I'm going to do that with Mergify. I'm going to create those two PRs again, and I'm going to put them into a merge queue automatically. Again, I'm lazy, so I don't want to have to do that manually. You can do that manually, of course, but it's not that exciting. So I'll reverse it my website. It works again. Let's go back to PR. So I have my two PR just like before. It's the same PR really. And in that case, we're going to put into the queue automatically. Oh, I do that. There's a rule system in Mergify which allows to automate anything. You basically describe the state of the pull request, and you're going to say with that the configuration is in the repository. You're going to automatically say that you want automatic queue, and based on the label that is present on the PR, the CI that must pass for the PR to be put into the queue, and then just put that PR into the queue, and that's it. So with like 10 lines, we can automate the whole merge process by putting that PR into the queue as soon as it's ready. In that case, I don't add any rules like number of approval because it's a demo and I'm all alone, but you can totally do that, and you should do that because usually you don't want to merge PRs without any review, except if you have a good reason to do so, right? So my two PR, they both pass the CI just like before, and they're going to enter the queue in a few seconds now. Okay, this one just entered and been merged. So since it was up to date, there was nothing to be done by Mergify. It just merged the PR right away. If you go to the second PR, it did not merge it yet. the first thing it did is that it actually updated the PR. So the way it does that is that it merges the main branch into the PR, and that triggers the CI again. And in that case, spoiler alert, we're going to see that the CI is broken and that PR will not be merged because of that. Which makes sense because actually adding a chart when the rename has been merged before is not going to work. We need to change the name of the component of that PR to merge. In that case, like I was saying, a merge queue is pretty cool because you can actually really master the way you are going to build your Git tree. I'm using the merge method to update the PR. You could also rebase the PR. It's going to be the same, that the Git tree is going to look different. Whatever you want to do, it's pretty configurable in Mergify, so you can build the Git tree of your dreams, basically. And if you have developers that are, really opinionated about, oh, you should have your Git tree, it's pretty easy to automate all of that. And like I said, I didn't lie, but it failed. And what did it fail? For the good reason, which is there's no chart anymore. We just merged the rename PR just before. So we actually moved catching this error very late in the process, maybe just before doing a delivery, like if you're doing CD, for example, you will catch that very late. And if you have the main branch that is broken, any new PR being opened, again, the main branch will have this error, for example, which means any developers going to open a new PR on your repo is going to be very frustrated because you merged something that broke the main branch and their PR is not broken and they can't do anything about it. They have to fix the main branch, obviously, but it's not their responsibility. And the bigger your team is, the bigger your repository is, and the more this problem is going to happen. So in that case, the right thing is for the developer to see that this doesn't work anymore, and then they have to rename the component with the right new name, resend the PR, and it will be added again to the queue, and then be merged automatically. And that's it for the usefulness of the merge queue. I think it's a pretty good demonstration about why you should have one. Even it's a pretty simple one. In that case, I showed you a very simple merge queue where there's 2 PR, so it's very simple. The more PR you have, the more your CI time is long. If you have a CI time of 1 hour, for example, merging a PR every 1 hour is not really sustainable over the long term. So there's a lot of different way of optimizing a merge queue by doing batches, for example, by doing what we call speculative checks. So basically testing PRs in advance in the queue. There's a lot of different ways of basically automating all the merge with the merge queue. And obviously we have all of these fancy feature. What we've seen over the last year is that a lot of team, they have this kind of problem. They are hit by that issue of merging PR that are in conflict functionally every weeks, every days, depends on the number of PR you merge every day, and they're not aware that this is actually the solution to the problem. So this is really where we're trying to put emphasis on, where you actually need not only to have a CI, but use a merge queue like that to make sure that you merge that is going to work and not break your production system. Pass it up to you, Greg, to see how we actually back up things.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it was really nice and interesting presentation. I've got one question even to you, but sure, let's wait with the question to the Q&A session. So maybe someone else will have also the same question. If no, you can be sure that you have at least one question from me. Okay, so let me switch myself to become the presenter, and let me also show you my screen with GitProtect already running. So I'm going to sharing, and I'm going to choose the right one, screen. So right now I believe you can see also my screen, and within my demo I would like to show you that data backup shouldn't be complicated, shouldn't be a difficult process, and we can quickly start protecting our repositories using just GitProtect. I've started the service tomorrow, so it's pretty fresh, and there are no backups at all. So first of all, what I have to do is just to access my service. We are using SSO over Google, And now I'm asked what I should choose firstly, which service I would like to start protecting as a first one. And as you can see, I've got prepared some GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket as well. I'm already logged into all those free services. So let's start with GitHub. I'm just pressing start now. And here we've got pretty easy authentication. So in general, I don't need even to focus on what's on the screen, because if I will click proceed, then everything will happen automatically, as we all love automatic approach. Then you can see in behind there is added GitHub organization, which is named Zopro Demo, and the same name is of my organization. Here I have already added, it's Zopro Demo 2. There are some demo repositories, so 15 of them there should be, as it's stated here in license and total number of repositories. But I'm asked if I would like to start backup of this organization, so obviously I want. So let me just press yes, and that's all what I have to do. As we can see, the backup plan has been started and my data right now are sending. So let's jump quickly into the tasks. Here is the list of the backup tasks that are already in progress. And if we'll take a look at them, there are 4 of them already in progress. So they are sending directly. Where, you may ask? So let's jump quickly into the storages, because GitProtect always is provided together with the cloud storage. We are providing cloud storage for you as well, so you don't need to worry about the space for your data. But of course, if you would like to keep your data on your own, just only on your resources, and do not send them somehow outside, then you can use plenty of different storage services like AWS, Azure, Wasabi, Google Cloud Storage. So whatever you choose, even you can store your data locally, so you don't need to send them anywhere outside. Yes, so that are the storage possibilities available directly in GitProtect. In terms of storage we are providing for you, it could be in 2 different locations. So the first, dedicated especially for EMEA region, is hosted in Netherlands, and another one is dedicated for the customer from both Americas, and it's located in the United States, of course. But if you will need storage in some different location, as we know, for example, that Central America has some issues with accessing data from the United States, then we can also prepare storage in different region. So let me close this window. Let's take a look how our backups is already making, and we can see that 7 of our repositories are already baked up properly. And for example, here we have fork of RoboVM, pretty nice framework, by the way. If you haven't used it before, it's dedicated to develop mobile application, but you can, with RoboVM, you can write application for iOS in Java. Yeah, that's for off topic. But let me take a look at summary. So we have around 170 gigabytes of data already protected. There was 11 different resources. So there is not only repository, but there was 9 labels. Some collaborator was also protected with this repository, so I can easily recover repository with access for this collaborator. And for each single protected repository, we have exactly the same data available. Right now, we can see that most of them are already protected. So let me jump quickly again to our DevOps tab. Here we can manage all our DevOps organization. And I would like to add one more. We can add Git or Jira. So today, let's focus on Git. And we've got already GitHub added, so let's go with GitLab. There is support, of course, for Bitbucket, GitHub, GitLab self-managed, Bitbucket data center, which is also self-managed, and GitLab self-managed as well. So I'm choosing GitLab. And yeah, let's make it just automatically. I don't want to provide any additional tokens or things like this, but of course you can. So we will have better control, for example, over resources GitProtect has access to. I'm sure what we are accessing, so I don't need to set it up in any different way. Here, as you can see, GitLab is already added. I was asked, but I quickly closed this window to assign a backup plan. And here right now, we've got information about our organization, its repositories and groups in total. So we are also protecting from GitLab not only repositories and its metadata, but also GitLab groups are covered as well. And as we made already backup, we can easily see that all our repositories are protected successfully. At any time, we can also access pretty nice and useful dashboards with some statistics, like for example, backup duration or on how our repositories are protected, if there are some issues or warnings that we need to deal with, or everything is successfully as it looks in this case. And in less than 3 minutes, we've got everything pretty well protected. There was WordPress, there were some RoboVM repositories and others. So some data were protected. And now we can just easily recover them. So from this point of view, I can choose which repositories I would like to recover. Let me, for example, recover Angular, which is also pretty useful, of course. Let me use some test repo from Cloud Expo and maybe some restart repo. So just 3 of them. In the next step, but of course, with just few clicks, you can, with one click in general, I can select all repositories, as you can see at the top of my screen. In the next step, I have to choose where I would like to restore those repositories, to which organization. I can also recover them directly to my computer, but I would like to go with GitLab, which was recently added. Let's go to the next step. Here we've got information about the resources that cannot be recovered between GitHub and GitLab, for example. So cross recovery for those resources is not supported. Usually it's because of lack of some features in the destination service. We've got already my organization chosen. So let's add maybe some suffixes to the recovered repositories like Mergify webinar. Okay, and let me start now the recovery process. So let's jump again into the tasks. As you can see, it looks pretty similar to the process that we saw just before. So there is nothing spectacular, but we just need to wait a while until they will be recovered directly to my GitLab. So in the meantime, just let me show you in settings that we've got some, for example, nice possibilities of notifying you about backup statuses, for example. So you can receive email notifications after each backup completed, but we can limit them, for example, to only those that are failed or finished with warnings, so to those that requires our attention. We can also receive some daily reports, and there is restore verification summary available as well, but it fits to VMware, because as I said before, ZepRo1 is professional backup platform which becomes equipped with some nice DevOps ecosystem features. Yeah, and we can just easily save any changes in our configuration. The same notification we can receive over the Slack channel, and it's also possible to register any webhook address that GitProtect will send its notification to. If you require, for example, some more administrative accounts to have in place, you can easily add them here. There are 4 different roles, at least 4 different roles available for them, like viewer, backup operator, and restore operator, who can followingly manage backup or restore processes. There is also system administrator. The highest role is root administrator, but also you can easily integrate GitProtect with some external IDP providers like Okta and any other which covers SAML. So that's briefly about GitProtect, I can see that one of those repositories is already recovered. This one is still in progress for 2 minutes. Oh, yeah, we are just recovering labels. As you can see, every metadata like LFS, labels, and so on was restored. We can just quickly move to another tab to see that 3 of those repositories were restored successfully. So here we've got 30 repositories that are already licensed. We can get Explore. So let's sync it again. Okay, it gets synced. And at the bottom, for example, we can see that Mergify web repository with suffix Mergify webinar we've recently added is here. So it was recovered with no issues at all. And I'm quite sure if we'll recover, here it is, for example, Mergify webinar repository that I've just recovered from my backup, from my GitHub directly to GitHub. And that's all in terms of quick GitProtect overview. As you can see, this is pretty advanced platform with features that are provided in very, very easy way. And I believe you won't have any problems with checking it on your own. So that's all from me in terms of our demo. So it's time for our Q&A session. So your questions and our answers. I can't see any of your questions right now. So I think it's time to ask firstly my question to you, because as I said before, I had some question, and the question is, I was wondering, what's the average, I don't know, team or company size which is using Mergify? Who this solution is dedicated for, especially average size of the team, or I don't know what's the measure?
That's a pretty good question, and I get that asked a lot. My answer is that well, it's not about the size; it's about the journey. Basically, the way people start is you have this software you're working on, and you don't have anything like any CI, any tests, and your end goal should be to have, at least that's what I think, something that is fully automated to the point where you write code, you push a pull request, and if it's okay, it just goes into production, right? And if you want to go that road, and whatever the size of your team, I mean, when we started working on Mergify, we were a team of 3 people basically working on a project and trying to solve that issue of not merging things that overlap and are breaking our main branch, because we're trying to do something that just works and is deployable all the time. So it's true that if your team is small, you will encounter this problem, less often than if you have 200 engineers working on a monorepo. That's like the worst case scenario where you're sure that you will end up having that twice, 3 times a week, these kind of issues. And that's terrible, because when your main branch is broken, then you have your 200 engineers being blocked, not being able to merge anything. And if you test too late in the pipeline, you can merge a lot of PRs, and then you have to find out what broke what and revert that, and everybody is frustrated and nobody can work. So it's true that the bigger you are, the more you will see the problem, but you don't have to wait to have 10, 20, 50 engineers in your team to start using Mergify, because the sooner the better. It's like a CI. Like if you wait to write tests and to run a CI in your development process, I mean, the later you do that, the more painful it's going to be to resolve all of that.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, so in general, if you will start with small team using Mergify, it will be easier to spread it to the bigger team once you will start growing up with your company.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah, and that's what basically our users and customers, they are team from 5 people to 500, 600 people using Mergify on a repo, because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, get it. I get it. So I will have also to ask my team to take a closer look to Mergify, and maybe I will contact you later also.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take a look if we have any questions, and we didn't get any more additional questions. So I believe everything was very clear and understandable for our attendees for today. So there is nothing else left from our side that say thank you for your time and being here with us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.